Have you ever heard that term, PSYOP? It sounds like something straight out of a spy thriller, right? But it's a very real military discipline, and it's been around for decades. Today, we're going to dive deep into what it is, how it works, and, maybe most importantly, how its principles might be shaping your world in ways you don't even realize. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the mechanics of hacking hearts and minds.
So let's just start right there. What in the world is PSYOP? The name itself, Psychological Operations, is pretty intense. But really, it's a core part of modern warfare. And believe it or not, it's a surprisingly non-lethal one, designed to achieve very real objectives, often without ever firing a single shot.
At its very core, the official mission boils down to this. It's not about brute force. It's all about changing what a target audience thinks, what they feel, and, what they ultimately do. The entire goal is to shape behavior, to get something done, whether that audience is an enemy army or a civilian population.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into the main concept. Then we'll see how it's actually used out on the field. After that, we'll explore the, let's call them shades of deception. And finally, we'll bring it all home to see how these exact same tactics show up in our everyday lives.
All right, first up, hacking hearts and minds. This phrase, it really just nails the essence of PSYOP. Because fundamentally, it's about winning military goals through influence, not destruction. You could even say it's an art form, where the real victory is won inside the mind.
The term that specialists actually use is a battlefield multiplier. So how can a small team make a much larger military force way more effective? Well, through influence. Instead of targeting bodies with bullets, PSYOP targets minds with messages. This makes traditional forces more powerful, and in some cases, might even make them unnecessary.
Okay, I know that all sounds a little bit abstract. So let's look at the actual battlefield toolkit. How does a team on the ground really use these ideas to get a job done? We've got a perfect example from a specialist who did just that, turning simple information into a seriously powerful weapon.
So, let me introduce you to John Nichols. As a PSYOP specialist in Iraq, his story gives us a perfect, real-world look at how these operations actually unfold. His mission? Find a hidden weapons cache in a really dangerous part of central Iraq.
What's so amazing here is how low-tech but crazy effective this whole process was. First, John's team used intel to zero in on this 3x3 kilometer area that was known for enemy activity. Then, they brought out the classic PSYOP tools, loudspeakers blasting messages, and good old-fashioned paper leaflets explaining how IEDs were hurting local civilians. And it worked. A truck driver, who had just delivered a shipment of IEDs, gets one of these leaflets, draws a map on the back, and hands it in.
And the result of that one leaflet? It led to one of the largest weapons cache discoveries of the entire war. We're talking over 3,000 components for what are called EFPs, explosively formed penetrators. That's enough to build more than 1,000 incredibly deadly bombs. A huge, life-saving win, achieved entirely through persuasion, no shots fired.
But not all PSYOP is that straightforward and, well, white hat. To see how complex and kinda murky this can get, we've got to look at the spectrum of deception. Operations are actually categorized by color: white, gray, and black. And these colors reveal a lot about the level of truth you're dealing with.
Okay, so it all breaks down into these three categories. White PSYOP is truthful info from a source you can identify, like the leaflets John Nichols handed out. Simple enough, but then things get fuzzy. With gray PSYOP, the source is ambiguous and the information is only plausibly true. And then you have black PSYOP, which is just outright deception, false information from a fake source, all designed to mislead.
And to really understand how unsettling this can get, let's look at a classic and pretty chilling example from the Vietnam War. It was a mission called Operation Wandering Soul.
So, U.S. forces learned about a local belief that people who were improperly buried would have their souls wander the earth in pain forever. So what did they do? They created these super eerie recordings of a supposed ghost speaking in Vietnamese and then blasted them from loudspeakers deep in the jungle at night. The whole goal was to prey on these deep-seated cultural beliefs to create fear and completely demoralize Viet Cong soldiers.
So all of this might seem like some distant, strange military tactic. But this brings us to our final and, honestly, our most important point. The principles of PSYOP are all around us. Because in the 21st century, the battlefield has expanded. It's now a war for your mind.
Seriously, just think about it for a second. That catchy jingle that gets stuck in your head for days, the viral political meme that makes your blood boil, that targeted ad that seems to know exactly what you want before you do, they all share the same fundamental goal as military PSYOP:
to influence your behavior.
And look, this isn't just a theory. For instance, the former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, described the Russian campaign during the 2016 U.S. election as, this is his quote, the most aggressive and most direct campaign he had ever seen, using all kinds of methods to influence the outcome.
And that kind of pulls back the curtain on the modern toolkit. We're not just talking about leaflets anymore. Today's influence ops use social media trolls, fake news, incredibly slick propaganda, strategically timed leaks of hacked info, and even something called memetic warfare, which is basically just weaponizing viral images and memes to spread ideas and chaos.
In this new kind of conflict, your personal data, that's the battlefield terrain. All the information we share online lets algorithms build these profiles of us that are so scarily accurate they can predict our behavior. They can target us with messages designed to push our emotional buttons with just incredible precision.
You know, that old advice to follow your heart? It gets a lot more complicated in this environment. When our desires, our beliefs, even our dreams are constantly being targeted by these sophisticated campaigns, well, it gets a lot harder to know if what we're feeling is truly our own, or if it's been subtly planted there by someone else.
And that really is the key takeaway from all of this. The techniques that were developed for the battlefield, to persuade, to change, to influence, they've broken out. They are now a fundamental, inseparable part of our global information world, used by corporations, political campaigns, and governments alike.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty unsettling question to think about. As you scroll through your feed today, as you watch the news, as you decide what to buy or who to believe, in a world that is just saturated with carefully crafted influence, how can you be sure that your thoughts are truly your own?